From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with an anniversary and a challenge not yet fully met. We take you back a year ago tonight. In the Persian Gulf, the Iraqi army was finally, definitively on the run. Kuwait City was being liberated. It would be another day before all the guns would fall silent, but the Kuwaitis call this Liberation Day. And today, warplanes from 24 nations flew over the Kuwaiti capital, some leaving smoke trails in the Kuwaiti colors. 1 week after the war, President Bush stood before Congress and called for an end to the uncontrolled flow of weapons into the Middle East. It would be tragic, he said then, if victory were to only bring about a new arms race. 1 year later, the competition to sell arms is as vigorous as ever, and the U.S. is the biggest player. Here's ABC's John McWethy.
The United States and its allies won the Gulf War against Iraq with a dazzling display of high-tech weaponry. The whole world watched, and leaders in the region took careful note of what made the difference.
People have learned a lesson, and the lesson is, by and large, that they need better weapons.
Now every country in the region is scrambling to buy new weapons. Syria and Iran have both been building up their armies and air forces, finding that Russia, Ukraine, Czechoslovakia, North Korea, and China are all eager to sell because of a desperate need for hard currency. Syria is trying to double the size of its tank force and to add longer-range Scud missiles to its arsenal. Iran has purchased top-of-the-line fighters and bombers from Russia, plus hundreds of tanks, and has been trying to buy several submarines. But the biggest buyers are not Iran and Syria, and the biggest seller is not Russia.
The biggest purchaser far and away is Saudi Arabia.
And the biggest supplier is the United States, a perfect partnership. The Saudis, who want to buy the best money can buy, have a request now pending for another 72 F-15 fighters.
What's happened is the perceived success of U.S. weapons in the war, the collapse of the Soviet Union, these two factors have combined to make the United States the world's largest supplier of weapons for the first time since 1984.
Last year's war has not brought peace of mind to any of the rich oil countries of the Gulf.
All of them essentially are trying to strengthen their military forces. All of them are worried about Iran. They're worried about Iraq being rebuilt.
Though Iraq has not been able to buy any significant new weapons, there are concerns that Saddam Hussein still has nuclear material and poison gas hidden away. So 1 year after the Gulf War ended, there is a new world order, but it is not of the kind that President Bush had envisioned. What has now settled on the Gulf and the Middle East is a kind of nervous peace, one that has everyone who can buying weapons to defend against neighbors they seem to trust even less than before the war. John McWethy, ABC News, Washington.
One question that has continued to follow President Bush since the war: why did the U.S. stop the fighting with Saddam Hussein still in power? Today we learn that in the course of targeting Iraq's military command, repeated efforts were made to kill the Iraqi leader. Here's ABC's Bob Zelnick.
According to senior Pentagon officials, thousands of bombing missions were conducted against the Iraqi command, many intended to hit Saddam Hussein himself. Early damage to command centers temporarily forced Saddam Hussein to run the war through handwritten messages delivered by helicopter to commanders in the field. Later, the Iraqi leader operated out of private homes in crowded Iraqi neighborhoods, often using civilian telephones, which complicated U.S. efforts to keep track of him. Intelligence on his movements was poor throughout the war. When he traveled by convoy, duplicate convoys, complete with Saddam Hussein lookalikes, would go off in different directions. Officials say one tip that Saddam Hussein would be visiting his hometown of Tikrit came too late. The meeting had occurred the previous night. Late in the war, Saddam Hussein was believed to be in an underground concrete bunker outside Baghdad. Stealth fighters hit the bunker 3 times with 2,000-pound bombs. When they failed to penetrate the thick concrete, the Iraqis moved more men and equipment into the bunker. The Air Force then ordered 2 4,700-pound bombs specially designed to take out underground bunkers. 2 F-111s delivered the bombs, one of which penetrated 60 to 70 feet, destroying the bunker. But Saddam Hussein was not there. Senior Pentagon officials say that in terms of isolating Iraq's leadership from troops in the field, the campaign against command facilities was a huge success. But Saddam Hussein survived, and that fact overshadows many other accomplishments. Bob Zelnick, ABC News at the Pentagon.
Another note from the Pentagon wants to sell $9 billion worth of raw materials currently in its warehouses. Pentagon officials say the stockpile of goods, everything from nickel and lead to quinine, proved worthless during the Gulf War. In a moment, we'll have some of the other news. Presidential politics, for one thing, damage control for the Bush campaign, and a more aggressive Senator Kerry going after Governor Clinton. Drug smuggling tonight across the Mexican border with Texas. The situation is not getting any better. And finally, the Gorbachevs learning to live on a Russian pension, almost like other Russians.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Tylenol.